In the light of the recent escalation of climate change, population growth, increased urbanization, and the decreased quality of environment, the risk and impact of natural disaster have been exacerbated. In 2019, World Economic Forum named natural disaster as the greatest threat to the people of the world in the recent years. It's easy to understand why. As we see, several high-profile natural disasters have recently hit both developed and developing countries. For example, the 2011 earthquake and tsunami in Japan killed tens of thousands of people and resulted in the damages of around 200 until 300 billion US dollars. Hundreds of thousands of lives were lost in the super typhoon Yolanda in the Philippines, the Indian Ocean tsunami, Hurricane Katrina in the United States, and the earthquake in the central Chile, Haiti. Natural disasters, whether they occur in developed or developing countries, destroys people's lives. Furthermore, the adversarial impact of natural disasters are not only in terms of life loss, but for the survivor's livelihood and welfare. Although the impact of natural disaster differ between countries, region, and community they live in due to the difference in vulnerability and exposure, however, people living in developing areas are particularly more susceptible toward natural disaster. Therefore, in this study, we want to examine how natural disasters affect household welfare in one of the most disaster-prone areas, Indonesia. Being located in Pacific Ring of Fire, an area with high degree tectonic activities, Indonesia has to cope with the constant risk of earthquake, tsunami, and even volcanic eruption. In this study, we want to understand the difference in, first, how each type of natural disaster affects well-being differently. Second, the effect of natural disaster in different parts of Indonesia. And the last one, what vulnerability and exposure entails to the effect of natural disaster in different parts of Indonesia. The findings in this study, we believe, will shed a new light on post-disaster recovery processes by speaking against overly pessimistic view on the negative consequences of natural disasters. Additionally, in order to build resilience toward natural disaster, Indonesia needs to fully understand about its impact on household welfare and livelihood. In this section, I want to explain the research method used for this study. In order to achieve research objective in understanding the effect of natural disaster on household welfare, we adopted the model developed by Arori and Glowey, in which household welfare is assumed as a function of the characteristic of a household, characteristic of community they live in, and in this case is sub-district characteristic, and the existence of natural disaster in sub-district. As we want to see the effect of natural disaster on household welfare, per capita expenditure that is commonly used as welfare indicator is employed for dependent variable. Our decision to choose per capita expenditure than per capita income is motivated by the fact that consumption expenditure data contain less measurement error than income data. We also utilized two national level dataset. First, the fourth and fifth wave of the Indonesian Family Life Survey that provides individual and household level variable. IFLS is a longitudinal socio-economic household survey based on a sample representing 83% of Indonesian population living in 13 out of 26 provinces in 1993. It collects a rich set of information on household, the community they live in, and the facilities available to them. Second, we complement IFLS dataset with a large number of sub-district characteristics aggregated from village-level data from the 28 and 2014 Village Potential Statistics or VODES. Having access to two-period micro-level database allow us to do panel data estimation for 5 types of natural disaster. Fixed effect regression is employed to estimate the effect of natural disaster on household welfare. We believe that the richness of sub-district level analysis has two advantages. First, the greater capacity for capturing the complexity of natural disaster adversarial impact, and the second, sub-district level panel data contains information on both the intertemporal dynamics and individuality of entities, may allow one to control the effect of missing or unobserved variable. Our study is also related mainly to a growing body literature that examines the impact of natural disaster on welfare. Number of recent studies have found that household welfare is negatively influenced by natural disaster. This paper expects to contribute in this trend of literature. In addition to the best of our knowledge, we are the first study that adds the empirical evidence of natural disaster impact on welfare at the Indonesian subdistrict and household level, which remain much more limited than the national or provincial level. And in the next section, I will talk about the result and the discussion from our study. We can see in here that after controlling household and subdistrict characteristics, it is observed that tsunami, earthquake, forest fire, and flash flood adversely affect household per capita expenditure at 1% significant level. As the highest adversarial effect, tsunami reduced household monthly per capita expenditure by 92%. In addition to our main finding, our result also revealed household and subdistrict characteristics that significantly influence per capita expenditure. And to understand the geographical difference in the way natural disaster affect household welfare, we divided our sample into several categories. First, Sumatera, and then Java, and then Kalimantan, and East Indonesia. We reached several conclusions. First, households living in Kalimantan and East Indonesia are more vulnerable to the occurrence of natural disaster, because as we see and in here, when facing similar type disaster, welfare losses experienced by these two regions tend to be higher and statistically significant. The second implication is different regions are affected differently by natural disaster. As we know that forest fire in Indonesia mainly occur outside Java, and it is logical that the adverse effect of this disaster tend to be higher in Kalimantan and East Indonesia, whereby per capita reduction due to the forest fire is estimated approximately by 33% in East Indonesia. Flash flood adversely affect well-being across region except for East Indonesia. Higher impact is in amongst households that live in Kalimantan. And as we know that Indonesia has to cope with the constant risk of earthquake, and hence earthquake has a risk of harming 148 million people in Indonesia. Our empirical research confirmed to the expectation that earthquake generate significant welfare losses across region, except for Kalimantan. And again, we can see in here that households living in East Indonesia are the most vulnerable to this disaster. The last one, this paper has put attention on the different ways in which natural disasters affect household welfare. The findings from our study may provide useful information for policymakers as well as development agencies on the adverse effect of natural disaster on household welfare and poverty in Indonesian village. If natural disaster result in large economic damage for household, then government should have more stronger and more effective policy and program in place to reduce the adverse effect of natural disaster. In addition, the findings may also provide important implications for other emerging and transition economies similar to Indonesia. I'm Irmayanti from Universitas Padjadjaran. Thank you.